The camera rolls. C-SPAN is live. The banner reads, Federal Budget Hearing Oversight Committee. But inside the chamber, nothing feels urgent. No raised voices, no confrontation, just charts, graphs, monotone voices reading bullet points. The kind of broadcast millions click past until today. Lawmakers sip coffee, nod along politely. Aides whisper to each other, eyes half-focused on their laptops. One senator flips through a manila folder like he's looking for the answer to a crossword puzzle, not a national crisis, and then he speaks. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson leans into the microphone. His voice is smooth, well-rehearsed, almost pastoral. The federal budget, he says, is not just numbers. It is a moral declaration of who we are as a nation. Soft applause follows. A few heads nod like they've heard this before, because they have. Outside the chamber, 42 million Americans are watching. Inside, no one mentions Dallas. No one mentions the children who died. No one speaks of the hospital that no longer opens its doors. Just moral declarations from men in suits. Speaker Johnson continues reading. Line after line, number after number. Funding for federal highways, subsidies for agriculture, a long paragraph about cybersecurity preparedness, but not one sentence about South Dallas. No mention of the hospital that shut down last spring. No mention of the ER that stopped taking patients. No mention of the parents who now drive 90 minutes just to reach an urgent care clinic. Nothing about the little girl with asthma who didn't make it. Nothing about the teenage boy with leukemia whose chemo ended mid-treatment. Just silence. But in this chamber, silence isn't empty. It's intentional, a form of policy. Because if you don't say the word South Dallas, then South Dallas doesn't exist, at least not in the budget. Outside this room, families are holding funerals. Inside, lawmakers are adjusting their microphones. The camera doesn't catch her at first. She doesn't enter like a politician, she enters like a verdict. No team, no press, no entourage. Just a black suit and a red folder clutched in her right hand. Jasmine Crockett doesn't look around. She doesn't nod to colleagues. She doesn't fake a smile for the camera. She walks with measured steps, heels echoing against the marble. She doesn't sit like she's joining a discussion. She sits like she's about to deliver a sentence. The folder lands on the desk with a soft, precise thud. It's not dramatic, but the energy in the room shifts. A few heads turn. One aide glances up from their screen. Something is different. This isn't theater. This is the part of the story where silence starts to break. And no one in that room, not even Mike Johnson, knows just how much it's about to shatter. Mike Johnson continues speaking. He's mid-sentence, still performing, when Jasmine Crockett finally lifts her eyes. Her voice doesn't rise. It doesn't shake. It cuts. Let's see what your morals cost us last year, Mr. Johnson. Every syllable lands with precision. The room freezes. Cameras zoom in. Mike Johnson stiffens just slightly. His jaw tightens. His eyes flicker. Only those watching closely catch the shift. On the desk in front of Crockett, the red folder sits wide open. Bold black letters stare back at the room like a slap across the face. Defense, $4 billion. Dallas denied. The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's electric. Every aide, every lawmaker, every viewer waits. Because they know this is no longer a hearing. This is a reckoning. Crockett doesn't pause. She reaches into the red folder again, slow, deliberate. One photo. Then another. Then another. They flash across the screen behind her. Black background, white border, no music, no voiceover, just raw images. A 2-year-old girl wrapped in medical gauze, her eyes half closed. A teenage boy in a wheelchair clutching an oxygen tank. A nurse slumped on the floor, hands over her face, still in scrubs. Nobody speaks, nobody breathes, and then the screen cuts to a black slide. Large red letters appear. This is not a budget cut, it's a sentence. Crockett speaks. Her voice is lower now. Not broken, but restrained. 16 children in South Dallas died last year because the ICU ran out of capacity. 48 cancer patients were removed from care plans because chemotherapy couldn't be sustained without federal support. No rage, no drama, just a voice doing what the system refused to do. Tell the truth. No applause, no rebuttal, no one dares clear their throat. Just silence, thick, heavy breathing, guilt into the air. The photos are still on the screen, the words still glowing in red. This is not a budget cut, it's a sentence. One lawmaker shifts in his seat. An aide quietly lowers her eyes. A C-SPAN camera lingers on MikeJohnson. His lips are sealed. His hand tightens on his pen. This isn't awkward, it's something else. It's what happens when truth finally enters a room built to avoid it. And in that moment, something shifts. People at home lean in closer. Not for drama, but because they feel it now. The injustice is no longer abstract. It has faces. It has names. It has bodies that never made it home. The silence cracks. MikeJohnson leans forward, not shaken, but calculating. His voice sharpens like a knife, politely placed on the table. If we're quoting numbers, he says, let's not cherry pick. He flips open a different binder, this one labeled Fiscal Oversight, Region 4. Behind him, his aides activate a second projector. The room dims again. A new spreadsheet lights up the wall. Rows of data, codes, allocations. It looks complicated by design. He zooms in on one highlighted line. Here's $12 million, he says, spent on public health messaging and vaccine outreach in South Dallas. Then, without missing a beat, it wasn't hospitals she chose, it was PR firms. He clicks again. Now on the screen, a giant billboard, a smiling doctor, a slogan, "Get the shot, save the block." In the corner, funded by federal grant, and underneath, a quote from Jasmine Crockett. Johnson isn't done. He clicks once more. A new image appears, this time a real billboard from South Dallas. There she is, Jasmine Crockett, smiling slightly, standing next to a local doctor. The slogan stretches across the frame in bold white text. Messaging is medicine. The room shifts again. More whispers, more looks exchanged. Then Johnson cues the video. A shaky recording plays on the screen. It's from a health conference in Houston. Crockett stands at a podium. Behind her, banners from public health campaigns. Below her, the quote, "Recorded on camera. Messaging is medicine. If we don't speak to people where they are, we lose them before they ever step inside a clinic." Johnson lets the clip end. He doesn't smile. He doesn't raise his voice. He just lets her words hang there, framed, edited, weaponized. The clip ends. The screen goes black. For a moment, it feels like Johnson won. A few Republicans smirk. One leans back in his chair, arms crossed, whispering, "She wasted it all on slogans." Another quietly nods. Aide to aide, the murmurs spread. A narrative begins to take root, one that paints Crockett not as a fighter for the people, but as a politician who traded hospital beds for PR headlines. And that doubt, it doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to settle. The energy in the chamber shifts. Reporters exchange glances. Even the C-SPAN camera subtly pulls away from Crockett. It looks like MikeJohnson might have turned the tide. But he hasn't, not really. She doesn't defend, she doesn't flinch. Jasmine Crockett just reaches down. She slides 3 thick binders from beneath the desk. One by one, calm, deliberate, no speeches, no outrage, Just the click of 3 metal rings opening in sequence. Click, click, click. The room quiets again, not from boredom this time, but from anticipation. Binder 1, campaign donations. Binder 2, contract awards. Binder 3, FEC filings. She doesn't need to shout. She doesn't need to prove her anger, because what she holds in her hands now isn't opinion, it's evidence. Binder 1 opens wide. Jasmine Crockett steps to the center of the screen. A single chart appears behind her. 3 defense contractors, 4 arrows, 1 number in bold, $1. $2 million. That's how much was funneled not to healthcare, not to trauma centers, but to a political action committee. The same PAC that supported one candidate, MikeJohnson. Crockett doesn't look at him. She looks at the screen. Click. A new slide. Federal Election Commission records. Donor ID numbers. Transaction dates. All highlighted in red. Click. Another slide. A PAC-sponsored campaign ad. Smiling families. Patriotic music. And at the end, Johnson's face. Full screen. She still doesn't raise her voice. While Park Hill lost its funding, she says, Speaker Johnson gained a donor. Crockett steps aside. The screen splits in 2. Left side, a photo of Park Hill Community Hospital. The doors are chained shut. The ER sign is cracked and faded. Graffiti on the brick wall. Dead leaves pile up at the entrance. Right side, a high-rise glass building. The headquarters of one of the defense contractors. Just blocks from Capitol Hill. Clean. Glistening. An American flag flutters outside. No captions, no narration. Just silence and the contrast. One saved lives. The other printed checks. Crockett doesn't point. She doesn't explain. She lets the images say what Congress wouldn't. This is what the budget chose. And it didn't choose us. Jasmine Crockett walks back to the center. The 2 images remain frozen behind her. One hospital chained shut. One tower gleaming with profit. She looks straight at the committee, at the speaker. Her voice doesn't rise. It doesn't tremble. It just lands. I lost a hospital. Pause. You gained a donor. Silence. No one speaks. Not even the chairman. It's not drama. It's not outrage. It's truth. And in this town, truth is the loudest thing you can say. Just when the silence feels permanent, a staffer rushes to the speaker's side, whispers, hands him a single sheet of paper. MikeJohnson straightens. He taps the microphone. Before we go any further, this just came to my desk. He holds it up. A single-page memo, handwritten, no letterhead, no agency seal, just a signature, and a line circled in red ink. Park Hill's funding is non-essential in strategic regions. Signed, J. Rollins, Deputy Budget Advisor. Gasps ripple. Aides lean in. The room shifts again. Johnson's voice is steady. This was not my decision. This came from staff assessments unanimously. He looks toward Crockett. Then back at the cameras. Sometimes leaders inherit bad choices. He places the memo face up on the table. The damage is clear. But now, so is the defense. Jasmine Crockett doesn't rush. She walks slowly to the desk, picks up the memo, reads it just once. Then she looks up. I've seen this handwriting before. She pulls a second sheet from her red folder, places them side by side. Same author, different month, same plan. The room stiffens. She circles 3 phrases in bold red marker. Don't touch defense. Cut Medicaid. Target woke cities. She turns to the speaker. Mr. Johnson, this wasn't a staff error. She holds the papers up to the cameras. It was a strategy. The chamber erupts, not in noise, but in shock. Even allies glance away. Even the chairman shifts uncomfortably. And Crockett just stands there, Still. Because when the truth is this ugly, stillness becomes its own kind of weapon. Speaker MikeJohnson leans forward, clears his throat, tightens his tie. Let's be clear, this memo, it wasn't approved. It's not policy. His voice tries to stay calm, but the corners of his mouth betray him. Tight, defensive. Crockett doesn't flinch. She flips the page toward the projector, zooms in. Signed, J. Rollins. Timestamp, March 2nd, 10:12 a.m. Classification, internal, do not distribute. The screen glows with the words, do not distribute. And yet, here it is. The silence deepens. Not confused, not hesitant, just heavy. Even the air feels judgmental now, like the truth has already made its decision. No one claps, no one defends him. Crockett doesn't gloat. She just watches him shrink behind the desk. Stillness now isn't waiting. Stillness has already spoken. MikeJohnson says nothing. The memo glows behind him like a scar on the wall. Crockett doesn't shout, doesn't pace. She just speaks. This isn't fiscal conservatism. Pause. This is class warfare beat, disguised as Christian stewardship. You could hear someone inhale sharply. A reporter's pen freezes mid-sentence. Aide's hand trembles near their earpiece. No more denials, no more excuses. The mask has fallen. And for the first time in this entire hearing, the public watching at home no longer feels like an audience. They feel like witnesses. The storm is no longer coming. It's here. A clerk steps forward, whispers something to the chairman. He nods, taps the mic. We've just received verification from the House Ethics Office. The room stills. The memo in question was circulated among 3 senior staffers from Speaker Johnson's office. It is not a rogue document. It is not a draft. It was deliberate. No one gasps, because everyone expected it. But that's what makes it worse. This wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. Jasmine Crockett doesn't blink. She doesn't need to say anything anymore. The system just confessed for her. And the cameras, they catch everything. The camera zooms in. A screen lights up behind Jasmine Crockett. Big letters, white text on a black screen. Every budget is a belief system. MikeJohnson, 2022. She doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. She simply turns to him and says, "Then your belief system, pause, left South Dallas bleeding." The words don't explode, they echo. 1,000 eyes watch Johnson's face for reaction. There isn't one. Because what do you say when your own words indict you? The hashtag moral budget starts trending. Not as praise, as irony. The chamber holds its breath. For a moment, no one moves, no one speaks. Even the cameras seem to hesitate. Then a single motion is filed. Formal request for ethics investigation into Speaker MikeJohnson. It echoes louder than a gavel. One Republican aide gathers papers. Another member stands and walks out. Then another. No shouting, no scene. Just quiet resignation. The camera catches it all. The glances, the silence, the splintering. What began as a routine hearing is now unraveling on live television. The system is cracking, not because someone screamed, but because too many people can no longer stay seated in a lie. The hearing ends, the doors creak open, and waiting outside the Capitol steps is not the press, but a crowd of quiet, wounded citizens. Some hold signs, others just hold each other. But in the front, a little girl steps forward, about 7 years old, hair in braids, clutching a folded sheet of paper. She walks up to Jasmine Crockett and unfolds it with care. It's a crayon drawing, a building with a red cross, children smiling in hospital beds, a nurse with angel wings. She looks up and says, Thank you for trying to save us. Crockett kneels. No cameras, no soundbite. Just her and the girl. She takes the paper, presses it to her chest. Whispers, "You saved me too." And for the first time in hours, she lets herself cry. Because this fight was never just about budgets. It was about being seen. Flashbulbs pop. Microphones stretch in from every angle. Dozens of reporters shout questions. "Congresswoman, do you think Johnson will resign? What's your next step? Did you plan this showdown?" Jasmine Crockett doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. She reaches into her coat and slowly lifts a folded crayon drawing into the air. The crowd stills. The cameras zoom in. A red cross. A child smiling. A nurse with wings. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't speak in sound bites. She simply says, "The true measure of a nation's strength isn't in its weapons. It's in what it's willing to heal." No slogans, no shouting, just truth wrapped in a child's drawing. And for one brief, blinding moment, America listens. As the microphones lower and the cameras dim, there's a hush, not silence, but anticipation. Jasmine Crockett steps forward one last time, not as a congresswoman, but as a daughter of the forgotten, as the voice of South Dallas, of shuttered hospitals, of unseen mothers and unheard children. She doesn't raise a binder. She doesn't show another graph. She just says, "We're not poor because we're lazy. We're poor because we're locked out of the room." Then she looks directly into the lens and adds, "You didn't fail to fund us. You refused to see us." The chamber is breathless. America watches. And suddenly it's no longer just about policy. It's about presence and absence and what it costs to be invisible. These words America can't unhear. Jasmine Crockett didn't walk out of the chamber with a cheer. There were no roaring crowds, no medal, no CNN special. She walked out the same way she came in, with purpose, not performance. With truth, not applause. And yet something had changed. The janitor watching from a hallway monitor. The nurse still in scrubs sitting in her car outside. The retired veteran in a South Dallas bar, eyes fixed on the screen. They didn't just see a congresswoman today. They saw themselves finally reflected in power. For years they were told they didn't belong in these rooms, that policy was for politicians, that numbers mattered more than names. But today someone brought their names, their stories, their loss. Jasmine didn't leave as a savior. She left as a mirror. And mirrors don't change the world. They demand that we do. Outside the Capitol, the crowd hasn't moved. There's no chanting, no podiums, just quiet, watching, holding their breath. Then she steps forward, the little girl with the crayon drawing. She walks up to Jasmine Crockett and looks up with wide, serious eyes. She doesn't ask for an autograph. She asks the only question that matters: did we win? For a moment, Crockett doesn't answer. She kneels to the girl's level, holds her hand, and with a smile, not of triumph, but of truth, "We started something." It's not the sound of celebration, it's the seed of something greater. Because real change doesn't happen in a vote count. It happens in conversations like this between a woman who fought and a child learning she has a voice. Speak truth, even when no one claps. This story reminds us that real leadership isn't loud. It's not about titles, polls, or applause. It's about showing up when it's hardest and standing for those who were never allowed in the room. Jasmine Crockett didn't win with volume. She won with clarity, courage, and conscience. And that's a lesson we all can live by. If your voice shakes, use it. Even if change doesn't happen overnight, What you start today could save lives tomorrow. If stories like this matter to you, if truth, justice, and real courage deserve a voice, subscribe to our channel right now. Because silence protects the powerful, but your voice can protect the truth. Hit that subscribe button and let's make stories like this too powerful to ignore.